Hello everybody. This is going to be an intro to NetLogo, and in the process we're going to build a simple random walk model. If you haven't downloaded NetLogo already, I encourage you to download it. The link is in the description of the video. It's free to download and use, and I encourage you to then follow along and build up this model as we go along. Okay, so NetLogo is a programming language and modeling environment for making what are known as agent-based models. And agents are really just things that can do stuff. And the two main types of agents we're going to use in this model are called turtles and patches. And we'll start with patches. So that probably all sounded pretty abstract, but it's going to get very concrete. So this black box is the world where the agents are going to be visualized. And right now it's all black, but it's actually made up of a bunch of patches. So you can right-click and inspect a patch. And patches have these properties. So px core is the patch x coordinate, patch y coordinate, and then the color, which is 0 right now. But if I change that, I can type in red. Now this patch turned red, and so you can see that actually this entire world is made up of a bunch of patches like this. They're just all black, so you couldn't see all of them. And I can go down here to the command center, and I can ask patches. That will ask all of the patches to do something. And I'm going to ask them to set p color to blue, let's say. They're all going to turn blue. Or I could have them, we know now that colors are represented as numbers. I can have them set their p color to a random number. This will do a random number between 0 and 100. And so we get this quilt looking pattern because each patch independently selected a random number between 0 and 100 and then changed its color to the color that corresponds to that number. Okay, so I'm going to go back down here. I'm going to click the up arrow to get my last command, and I'm just going to change them back to black so that we can see our turtles as we explore turtles. So I can write create turtles 1. That'll create one turtle. Whatever number you do, that's how many turtles it will create. Or for short, you can do CRT and then a number. So now I've got 2 turtles here, and I can ask turtles to do things just like I can ask patches to do things. So I'm going to ask these turtles to move forward, FD for short. So do 2. And so when I hit enter, you see these 2 turtles. They started randomly with facing different directions. They're each going to move forward 2. And you can inspect turtles as well. So I can right click, inspect turtle 1. And turtles also have a bunch of properties. The who is just the ID. So this is turtle 1. If I right click on this one, that's turtle 0. They've got a color, so I can change this color. This heading is where it's facing, so 0 is facing upwards, and then it goes clockwise 360 degrees, so 90 will be to the right, 180 will be down, etc. X coordinate and Y coordinate, so if I change the X coordinate to, let's say 10, it's now over here at 10. And a Y coordinate, and I won't talk about any of these other ones except for now this pen mode. If you change that to down, now if I have this turtle move, which I can type a command here which asks just this specific turtle to move, I can ask it, let's say forward 5. You'll see that it will draw because its pen mode is down. And I can type pen up for it to go back up, or I could just go in here and edit that again. And now if I do forward 5, it doesn't draw anymore. So those are some basic commands about our turtles. Okay, so now we're going to go over here to the code tab, over here, and we're going to write a procedure. So our first procedure is going to be a setup procedure. We're going to call it toSetup. That's how you write a procedure. To, then the name of your procedure, and then end. And we're going to start by doing clear all, which actually, that works, but you can also just do CA for short. So if I go over here, right now my setup procedure just clears things. So if I type setup, you can see now the world is cleared. And I'm going to create 2 turtles, and I'm going to reset my ticks, which is how we keep track of time. We'll talk about those in a second. So right now the ticks are undefined. If I type in setup, created 2 turtles, and my ticks are 0. And I don't want to have to type that each time because I'm going to do that a lot. So I'm going to go over here and there's a bunch of widgets we can create. One is a button, so I'm going to click add and make a button. And I'm just going to I'm going to type setup in here. And so now when I click this button, it's just going to run the setup procedure that I just defined. So each time it's going to clear the world, create 2 turtles, and reset the ticks. And now I'm going to write a go procedure. And in that, I'm going to ask my turtles, for now, I'm just going to ask my turtles to move forward 1. That is it. And I'm going to tick, which will increment our ticks. That'll help us keep track of time. So if I type go down here, each time I do that, the turtles are going to move and the ticks are going to go up. But again, I don't want to have to type that, so I'm going to make a button. And I'll just say go. And so now each time I click this, turtles move 1 and the ticks increment by 1. And this one actually, I want it to just keep going forever. I don't want to have to click it each time. So I'll click this forever button. Now these arrows show up, which means it's going to keep looping. It's going to keep calling this over and over. I'll click this too, that way you can't do this until our ticks have been reset. So I'm going to set up, and now when you click this, it's going really fast. So I'm going to slow that down. And you can see these 2 turtles zooming around, and they keep reappearing on the other side because right now if you click the settings button, this shows some of the model settings. And our world right now has these world wraps horizontally and world wraps vertically checked. So it's a torus. If you uncheck these, then it would be a box and the turtles would not, they would just stop when they reach the end. But we'll leave it as a torus for now. Okay, so now we've got some basic code, we've got a setup, we've got a go button. Let's go ahead and modify our go procedure to be a random walk just in the X direction. So we've already got this forward one, that's fine. But we want the turtles each tick to be facing either the positive X direction or negative X direction, so that it's going to be a random walk in the X direction. So there's a number of ways to do that. I'm just going to pick one. I'm going to have the turtles set their heading, and I want it to be either 90 degrees, that would be facing to the right, or 270 degrees. 270 degrees, that will be to the left. So I can do this one of command and then put those 2 numbers in a list like this. And so now what this is going to do is set the heading to one of. It'll randomly pick one of the numbers in this list with equal probability. So it'll pick either 90 or 270, set the heading to that number, and then it's going to move forward 1. So if I go back over here, click setup, and now when we click go, these turtles just wander in the X direction. Great, okay, so I want to have more than 2 turtles because we're going to want to actually use this to get some statistics, so we're going to want a lot of turtles. Do 50 for now, but the problem now is it's hard to see what's going on because they're all on top of each other. So let's spread them out in the Y direction. And we're going to do that by, right after recreating them, if you do an open bracket, close bracket, then these turtles that were just created will execute the commands inside of this bracket. So we're going to have them set their Y coordinate to a random Y coordinate. We could do that with a random number, going from the minimum to the maximum Y coordinate, or there's actually a built-in random Y core command. If I go back here in the command center and type random Y core, it's just going to return a number which is a random Y coordinate between the minimum and maximum. And so now when I click setup, I've got 50 turtles. They are all still at X equals 0, but their Y coordinates are random, so they're spread out and we can see them. And if we click go, they're going to do their random walk. Okay, so a couple other things I want to add to the setup procedure. One is I want to be able to change the number of turtles easily without having to go into the code tab and changing this number. So I'm going to create a new widget, which is the slider. We're going to call it nTurtles, and it'll go from 1 to, let's say, 500. And so this is now a global variable. If I go down here and type nTurtles, it's going to show 50 because that's what the slider is set to. And I'm going to go over here and change this to nTurtles. So now we're going to create this number of turtles, whatever nTurtles is set to by that slider. So this will be 50. If I slide it down to 1, we're just going to get 1 turtle, and it's picking a random Y coordinate each time. Or we can go up to some big number, and now we got a lot, and we can speed that up a little, and they're wandering randomly again. And one last thing I'm going to do in our setup procedure, I'd like to be able to see where they started more easily. So I'm going to ask patches, but I just want the patches at x equals 0. So I'm going to say with px coordinate equal to 0. So now I'm going to be asking the patches that only have this thing true, only the patches with a px coordinate that is equal to 0. And then they're going to do these commands, set p color to, let's do gray. So now when I click setup, these patches in the middle are gray, and that makes it easy to see where all of our turtles started up, and it's easier to see now how far they are from that starting position. Okay, so now we'd like to, it's hard to see how many turtles have wandered, how many turtles are at each x position. So we're going to start being able to keep track of that by using a plot. So I'm going to use a plot widget. And instead of plot, there's a few different plot commands. I'm going to use a histogram. And we want to do a histogram of the x coordinates of the turtles. I'm going to click this pencil to do some more edits to this plot. So the mode, I'm going to make it a bar plot because we're doing a histogram. The interval is fine. That's how big the buckets are for our histogram. And here's our plot update commands. Okay. And it's red because there's something wrong. Let's see what it is. Oh, right. I need x coordinate of turtles. And I'll show you what this does. So if I type this in the command center, that's going to give, right now they're all at 0. It's a list of the x coordinates if we let this go for a little while. Then if I type in x coordinate of turtles, this just gives a list of the x coordinate of all of the turtles. And here we've got this histogram, but I realized we actually want the x to go negative, so we'll make the x minimum, we'll make it -16, which is our minimum x coordinate, positive. Okay, and now I've got a histogram of the x coordinate of all of our turtles. Just to edit that a little more, I'm going to make our plot update command. I'm going to set the y from 0 to 20. So each tick, this plot is going to try to set the y range from 0 to 20, but if it needs a bigger y range, because auto scale is checked, it'll go past 20 if it needs to. But then if it gets below 20, it'll go down to 20. So it'll just keep this y range a little bit lower. And we can name it something like displacement histogram. Or we can even just call it x-core histogram. Okay. So now we've got this nice histogram that shows how many turtles we have at each x coordinate. And a couple other things now to do. One is I'd like to be able to have a little more control over how long this runs. So I'm going to do two things. One, I'm going to create one more button. And I want it to be go, but I don't want this one to go forever. I just want it to be once. So this is just going to run the go command once. To make the button clear, I'm going to give it a display name, which is go once. And so now I can click this and it'll just go once. So I have a little more control that way. But I also want to be able to go like this, but stop at a certain time. So I'm going to move these down a little and I'm going to create we'll do an input. We could do a slider, but I'm going to do an input. I'm going to call it max ticks. Whoa, I don't know what happened there. Okay, there we go. So this is max ticks. And right now it's blank, but I can go in there and type a number. So there's 10, 15, it can be whatever I want. And I'm going to go in here to the code tab, and in my go procedure, I'm going to write an if statement. If my ticks, which is the actual number of ticks that have passed, equals max ticks, then stop. So this just gives me a little more control. I can click the go forever button, but once we get to 15 ticks, then it stops. So if I want to just do a certain amount of time and then see what my histogram looks like, I can do that. And one last plot I'm going to make. I'm going to use the plot command this time. This time I want to get the mean of the x coordinate of our turtles. So again, this part is giving us a list of the x-coordinate of the turtles, and then mean just returns the mean of that list. And plot, by default, plots whatever this number is. This is going to be a single number as the y-coordinate, and the x-coordinate by default is the ticks. So it'll be a time series of this number over time. If you wanted to do manually something else on the x-axis, you could use plot xy and then put whatever you want as your x. But we're just going to do that for now. And I'll change this to -2 and this to +2. You can change these to whatever you want. And so now this plot is showing our mean or average x-coordinate over time. And you can see that it's fluctuating up and down, but staying near 0. And the last thing I will show you is how to make a reporter. So this is a pretty simple calculation, so I'd normally just do it in this plot. But sometimes you have something more complicated, or you want to do it more than once. So there's another type of procedure, which is a reporter. So instead of to, you write to report. In this case, we'll just call it mean x-coordinate, because that's what we're going to do. Then you type report, and I'm pasting this in here, mean x-coordinate of turtles. So this reporter now will report whatever this is. So if I go back to the command center and I put in here mean x-coordinate, it's giving me the mean x-coordinate of all of the turtles. So then if I want to, I can go in here, instead of plotting this, I can do mean x-coordinate, and it's going to do the same thing as before. But if I had some more complicated logic that takes more than one line to do, I could make this reporter, put all of the logic in here, report the number, and plot it that way. Okay, that's all for now. We've gone through a bunch of things. It's probably been a little fast, but I hope it made sense. We talked about patches, changing patches color, turtles, how to make turtles move, and a few other things about turtles, and in the code tab, how to write procedures. And we went through a number of different widgets, including buttons and sliders and plots. So I hope that all makes sense, and hope to see you in another video.